So for my latest video, I wanted to talk about emotional eating or eating to cope with our anxiety or our depression. This is something that is extremely common, and personally, it caused a whole nother layer of problems that I had to deal with on the road to recovery from my anxiety and depression and panic disorder. So first of all, let's just get into the science behind this. If we have anxiety disorder or panic disorder, something is revving us up where we're having racing thoughts and where our anxiety is high. What this is going to do is obviously it triggers the fight or flight response. And it's going to increase our appetite and increase our cortisol levels. So it's a double whammy. It makes you hungry. It'll make you feel hungry, and also will make you store more of that food for fat. So that's why you'll notice you'll gain weight even faster maybe than you normally would if you're eating with an anxiety disorder. I know I did. So that's kind of the science behind eating when we're anxious, eating when we have anxiety. Now, as far as eating when we have depression, a lot of the times what we're doing there is we're self-soothing. So what science has found is that especially food that's high in sugar, fat, carbohydrates, these foods will actually release the neurotransmitter dopamine. So it'll make us feel good. It'll give us a feeling of, that neurotransmitter will be released, be it for only a very short time. And that's why it's such a poor coping strategy for depression, because the consequences, and even that feeling, that good feeling, that dopamine, it's very short-lived. So within a few minutes, if you're like I was, you'll feel guilt. You'll feel terrible about yourself, especially if you're already overweight, and it'll just deepen the depression. It'll make you feel even worse about yourself. It also, another aspect of the science behind emotional eating is it also triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. So it can give us a calming effect. It's like rest and digest. So after we eat something, and I know I did this even before I had a diagnosed mental health condition. I know that one of my big shortcomings was right before bed, I would have a giant bowl of cereal, and the combination of the carbohydrates in the cereal and the milk, it would give me that calm feeling, and I'd be able to go to sleep. But there's no denying that food can give you that rest and digest feeling. But the problem is when we're eating to cope, again, we're addressing the issue incorrectly. We're not addressing the issue at hand. We are, this is where I'll get into my personal experience. I was a chubby, prepubescent teenager. And from the ages of, say, 15 to 25, I was in relatively good shape the entire time. And after my daughter was born, from 25 to 31 or so, about when I got my panic attacks, I was in okay shape. I was heavier than I was when I was younger. Obviously, the lifestyle change of having a child and a family. But once I started having panic attacks, once I started not being able to exercise, my weight skyrocketed. It skyrocketed. At its worst, I was 365 pounds. 365 pounds. It was awful. And I can tell you that I did all of the things I mentioned. I ate when I was anxious. I ate to self-soothe. I ate for every emotional reason that you could eat for, because my emotions were all over the place. And I was just trying to patch the mental health issues that were going on. And it's a very, very bad solution to mental health, because it lasts this long at best, and then you're left with guilt and shame and a deepening of not only the depression, but also the anxiety. Remember, in my other videos I mentioned, I told you guys that I had health anxiety. Now, when you weigh, 350 plus pounds and you have health anxiety, what do you think? I mean, that I was a walking heart attack. In my mind, I was, it was a miracle I didn't just die any second. Yet I still ate to self-soothe, even though it was completely illogical. And it's, to be completely honest and fully transparent with you guys, I really believe that a lot of my emotional connection with food came about when I was a juvenile. I had a younger sibling who got sick and was very ill, had leukemia. And for a year and a half, the family's full focus was on him, as it should have been. And I learned during that time to associate food with a way of coping. I was at age 7 to 9 at the time. And that's when I first started to get a little bit chubby. And then obviously after his death, I was still left with a few years of emotional eating before I think like a lot of young teenagers decided that he wanted to look a little better for the opposite sex and just to feel better. And I loved sports, so I did lose the weight. But anyways, I just wanted to let you guys know that long before I had diagnosable anxiety, depression, panic disorder, I had already formed an emotional attachment to food that no doubt was, a contributing factor to things really spiraling downhill as I got older and as I started to have panic disorder and clinical depression and generalized anxiety. It was, it was the perfect foundation to become, like I did, morbidly obese. But anyways, I'd like to talk about how we can avoid emotional eating. How do we avoid this? Well, number one, the first thing you need to do is you need to get the mental health condition treated. That is the most important thing you can do. Get your mental health condition treated. And it might take medication. You might be able to do it with just either exposure therapy or improving some of your habits. But the first thing you need to do is you need to make an appointment with a mental health professional and get this condition under control. That's the first thing you need to do.